After nouns, you can guess that after verbs, you can guess that nouns are going to be your most important part of speech in Latin. Remember, nouns are persons, places, things, or ideas. So nouns are the stuff that verbs are going to do. Right? Somebody has to do a verb, somebody has to do an action, and they have to do that action to somebody. So after verbs, you can guess that I probably believe that nouns are the second most important part of speech in Latin. Remember from grade school, nouns are persons, places, things, or ideas. Nouns are going to be the people that do the actions, right? And of course, we're going to have somebody to receive the action. And perhaps we have possession and all these other sorts of things. So this is a quick lesson to sort of show how nouns work in Latin. And how we classify nouns. Now, the first thing you should know is that every noun has a stem, that is what we're talking about, what it refers to in the real world, and it has an ending. Now, this ending is going to change. It's not just going to change like it does in English when it's going to be singular and plural, although it does do that. It's also going to change depending on its function. So the stem and ending together equals, or really the ending, equals the function in the sentence, right, what it's doing. So let's take a look. Now, that ending is going to be, the technical term we're going to use is case. It's going to tell us what case the noun is in. Okay? Now, there are 6 cases in all in Latin, 5 major ones, and then one that's less important, but I'll mention it here. Now, the first case you're going to run into is the nominative. And the nominative is used primarily to show us the subject of the sentence. Who's doing the action? Right? So, if I say Marcus is walking, Marcus, the ending is going to show us that it's the nominative case, the subject. The genitive case, the next case we look at, is going to show us mostly possession. Right? So we can have Bob's car. Now Bob's here, this is the genitive because he's the one doing possessing, right? So the genitive shows us who the possessor is. In English, it's very much like our apostrophe S, or in the plural S apostrophe. We could also translate it, the car of Bob. Right? So this of Bob is the genitive. The 2 ways to translate the genitive is really the apostrophe S or of X, whatever X is. The third case we're going to run into is the dative case. And some people refer to this as the 2 or 4 case. It has a number of different uses. There is no one sort of simple formula, but 2 or 4, 2 or 4, and sometimes is used for what you might have learned as the indirect object. So I gave a card to my mother, where mother is going to be in the dative because we have this to. So the dative, the case, all by itself is translated by this whole phrase, to my mother. The accusative case, in addition to many other uses, but the primary one you're going to learn, and the first one you're going to run into, is the direct object. So in that sentence we had before, the accusative, I gave a card to my mother. Card is the direct object. It is the accusative. So in Latin this would be in the accusative case because it's the thing that I gave. Right? And then finally, the 5th case, the 5th of the major cases, is the ablative. And this is translated in many, many different ways. It can show us place where with prepositions. So, I am sitting on a chair. Chair is going to be in the ablative, and we're going to use a word in Latin, in, with that ablative of chair to show us where. It can also be translated all by itself, by or with, when it shows the tool. So if I say, I am writing with a stylus, stylus, and actually this whole phrase, is going to be translated by the ablative. So we call it the ablative of means. It's the tool by which I'm doing it. As you go through Latin, you're going to continually learn new uses that this ablative case is put to. And finally, that sixth case that I mentioned at the beginning, the vocative. And this is direct address. We use the vocative for direct address. Right, so if I say, Bob, what are you doing? This form here will be in the vocative, right? Or Bob, watch out. Again, I'm addressing Bob, and therefore Bob's going to be in the vocative case. So remember these cases, have them memorized, memorize the names of the cases, and memorize them in this order: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and ablative, and then vocative afterwards. I'll give you a little hint of things to come. The vocative case is oftentimes the very same form as the nominative. Context is going to tell you what's going on. But memorize these in this order so that when it comes time to forming those nouns, you have this order in your mind.